Christina, and you're listening to Your PharmD Bestie. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Your PharmD Bestie. This is actually a subset of the podcast. Today, I wanted to make a short video detailing some tips for residency letter of intents and or personal statements. A personal statement is generally required by all residency programs to highlight your qualities and experiences that demonstrate your passion and fit for that particular residency program and also pharmacy practice. So as someone who has reviewed over 30 letter of intents of peers and underclassmen, I wanted to briefly go over some tips that are often not talked about. So let's start off at the beginning of an LOI. We start off with the residency program director, name, position, and residency program address. This should be included as basic letter etiquette. So now, number one thing to consider and avoid making this mistake, you don't include all the degree titles of the person you are writing to. The best place to look for confirmation of all the degree titles a person might hold is through the program's directory. Though this is often a more minor mistake, I like to follow the rule of respecting someone's name and the effort that they put into obtaining that extra degree. So don't make the mistake and not include all the degree titles of a person that you're writing to. The first paragraph of the letter of intent contains your statement of interest. So you are telling the RPD that you are specifically interested in their residency program, reasons you're interested in their residency program, and that you are a strong candidate for their program because of X, Y, and Z. Most of the letter of intents that I've read follow this similar format. So now number two thing to consider occurs here. You've been writing so many letters of intent that you accidentally write to the wrong program. Please, please, please double check that you don't do this. All right. Otherwise, I'd like to address a couple of things about this first paragraph. So number three thing to consider, some people like to include the names of residents or faculty members that they talk to in this first paragraph as indication that they made effort to learn about the program. Depending on how long your letter of intent is and how intensive your discussion was with that person or that point of contact, I might argue that it isn't necessary to do so. So if you're putting down a name as evidence that you attended a pharmacy conference booth or an open house, chances are that that program already has a record of your attendance. And if you're already short on space for your letter of intent, you could probably use that couple of lines for something else to further boost your LOI. Number four thing to consider. Some people also prefer talking about their short-term and long-term goals in that first paragraph, so that any skills or experiences they talk about in the body paragraphs can be tied back to their goals and how their prior experiences and gained experiences during residency can help them achieve that goal. It may also allow for the program to assess early on in the LOI how well your goals align with what type of resident they're looking for. Now, going into the body paragraphs, you start diving deeper into your XYZ qualities. As an health systems pharmacy leadership and administration or HSPAL candidate, I focused my three qualities on my clinical practice experience, my leadership experience, and exposure to health systems practice as my selling points. In the first body paragraph, I talked about how I gained strong clinical skills. I gave a very specific example of a patient case I had on a cardiology rotation. So this is number five thing to consider. Not only should you give a specific example to back up your quality or strength, the example should almost follow a star format, like in interviews that you've heard about. You want to mention the situation briefly, followed by what you did in that situation and what the results were. I especially love it when I read about an example where the student went above and beyond for their patient. So this is the format I would recommend for all the body paragraphs to give consistency and structure to your letter of intent. Now here's the number six thing to consider with the body paragraphs. Some people like to give 2 to 3 examples per paragraph, thinking that the more examples they can give, the better it is. However, you have to consider that the length of the LOI and how much valuable information you're actually giving per example. So chances are if you're able to fit 2 to 3 examples per paragraph, you're probably writing only 1 to 2 sentences per example. And I would argue that that isn't enough detail to really show what you did with that experience. So as I always say, less talking and more showing. Move on to number 7, things to consider. At the end of each body paragraph, I generally like to tie my example back to how I can continue growing that skill to achieve my goals, or how I can give to the residency program with any unique skill or experience that I have from my past, like a unique rotation, for example. So we've now reached the end of the letter of intent. Your conclusion should essentially reiterate your interest in the program and how you are the best fit for the program. And remember to end the letter with business letter formatting, your name, title, school of pharmacy you attended, and signature. Some final things to consider. Overall formatting includes margins, I think it's zero point 0.5 to 1 inch, font size of 10 to 12, depending on what font you use, and limit yourself to 1 page when you start. So that ends this video. I hope you were able to gather some valuable advice from this, and best of luck with your applications.